We cry out for meaning. And believe me, we do cry out. We see UFOs, engage in channeling, spirit contact, out-of-body experiences, mind quests. All these eccentric ideas have a scientific veneer, but they are unashamedly irrational. They are the desperate cry of the modern soul, lonely and tormented, crippled by its own enlightenment and its inability to accept meaning in anything removed from technology. Mortati could feel himself leaning forward in his seat. He and the other cardinals and people around the world were hanging on this priest's every utterance. The Camerlengo spoke with no rhetoric or vitriol. No references to Scripture or Jesus Christ. He spoke in modern terms, unadorned and pure. Somehow, as though the words were flowing from God Himself, he spoke the modern language, delivering the ancient message. In that moment, Mortati saw one of the reasons the late Pope held this young man so dear. In a world of apathy, cynicism, and technological deification, men like the Camerlengo, realists who could speak to our souls like this man just had, were the Church's only hope. The Camerlengo was talking more forcefully now. Science, you say, will save us. Science, I say, has destroyed us. Since the days of Galileo, the Church has tried to slow the relentless march of science, sometimes with misguided means, but always with benevolent intention. Even so, the temptations are too great for man to resist. I warn you, look around yourselves. The promises of science have not been kept. Promises of efficiency and simplicity have bred nothing but pollution and chaos. We are a fractured and frantic species, moving down a path of destruction. The Camerlengo paused a long moment and then sharpened his eyes on the camera. Who is this God Science? Who is the God who offers his people power but no moral framework to tell you how to use that power? What kind of God gives a child fire but does not warn the child of its dangers? The language of science comes with no signposts about good and bad. Science textbooks tell us how to create a nuclear reaction, and yet they contain no chapter asking us if it is a good or a bad idea. To science, I say this. The Church is tired. We are exhausted from trying to be your signposts. Our resources are drying up from our campaign to be the voice of balance as you plow blindly on in your quest for smaller chips and larger profits. We ask not why you will not govern yourselves, but how can you? Your world moves so fast that if you stop even for an instant to consider the implications of your actions, someone more efficient will whip past you in a blur. So you move on. You proliferate weapons of mass destruction, but it is the Pope who travels the world beseeching leaders to use restraint. You clone living creatures, but it is the Church reminding us to consider the moral implications of our actions. You encourage people to interact on phones, video screens, and computers, but it is the Church who opens its doors and reminds us to commune in person as we were meant to do. You even murder unborn babies in the name of research that will save lives. Again, it is the Church who points out the fallacy of this reasoning. And all the while, you proclaim the Church is ignorant. But who is more ignorant? The man who cannot define lightning, or the man who does not respect its awesome power? This Church is reaching out to you. Reaching out to everyone. And yet the more we reach, the more you push us away. Show me proof there is a God, you say. I say use your telescopes to look to the heavens, and tell me how there could not be a God. The Camerlengo had tears in his eyes now. You ask what does God look like? I say, where did that question come from? The answers are one and the same. Do you not see God in your science? How can you miss Him? You proclaim that even the slightest change in the force of gravity or the weight of an atom would have rendered our universe a lifeless mist rather than our magnificent sea of heavenly bodies, and yet you fail to see God's hand in this. Is it really so much easier to believe that we simply chose the right card from a deck of billions? Have we become so spiritually bankrupt that we would rather believe in mathematical impossibility than in a power greater than us? Whether or not you believe in God, the Camerlengo said, his voice deepening with deliberation, you must believe this. When we as a species abandon our trust in the power greater than us, we abandon our sense of accountability. Faith. All faiths are admonitions that there is something we cannot understand, something to which we are accountable. With faith we are accountable to each other, to ourselves, and to a higher truth. Religion is flawed, but only because man is flawed. If the outside world could see this church as I do, looking beyond the ritual of these walls, they would see a modern miracle. A brotherhood of imperfect, simple souls wanting only to be a voice of compassion in a world spinning out of control. The Camerlengo motioned out over the College of Cardinals, and the BBC camerawoman instinctively followed, panning the crowd. Are we obsolete? The Camerlengo asked. Are these men dinosaurs? Am I? Does the world really need a voice for the poor, the weak, the oppressed, the unborn child? Do we really need souls like these who, though imperfect, spend their lives imploring each of us to read the signposts of morality and not lose our way?